What is up, my friends and fellow BusyBees? Today, I wanted to touch base and just talk a bit about the big M word. No, not motivation, though that will hopefully be sprinkled throughout the episode regardless. But I want to talk about mindset. Because addressing and checking in regularly with my mindset has become a really important practice for me just in my day to day life, but also for me as a business owner. On a more personal note, I started to really make this an intentional practice during COVID when, well, everything just really fucking sucked and the world was imploding before our eyes. Don't know if you remember. And I was also attempting to plan a wedding at that time, which had its own slew of annoyances. Ended up planning 3 different weddings, so I basically might as well be a wedding planner at this point, but that's besides the point. But I was basically just really bummed out. I was sitting in my negativity a lot. I found myself talking really negatively and just being kind of like overall very bitchy, which is somewhere that I can go really easily, but I don't like that about myself. And so I always aim to grow and look at myself and be like, what's going on here? Why am I feeling defensive or whatever it is? And I was just in a really kind of like bummer of a place. And so I was like, you know what I need to do? I need to take a really hard look at my mindset. And I started listening to and learning about kind of personal development and how to work on my mindset and how to check in with myself and be very objective and frank with myself, which I think that I had the ability to do pretty easily. Like I always say, I'm a very no bullshit person. I'm transparent with others and with myself. I know what my faults are. I constantly aim to work on them for the most part, and I think I'm fairly well-rounded in that way, especially for an only child who grew up in the bush, okay? I didn't have a lot of people around me to be like, work on this, and I figured a lot of it out. So during that time, I started making really intentional practices to work on my mindset. And one thing that I needed to do, I realized I needed to do, was just focus on the positive things in life. And so, totally stereotypical, but I started a gratitude journal. I know, cue the eye roll, but honestly, it really helped. And it helped for the time that I was really consistent with it. I was probably super consistent with it for like 3 months and then got a little bit less consistent and would just kind of pop in when I felt that I needed it or I wanted to look back on the things that I had written in it. And that would typically induce more gratitude so then I would think of something that I could write in it. And now I still have it. I don't use it very often, but I have kind of trained my brain to look for these things in my day and to really focus on them because I think that's what the biggest issue was, is that I was focusing really hard on the negative stuff and I was giving that more time and more weight in my day than I was for the positive things that might have been more fleeting and I would acknowledge maybe, but wouldn't spend the time to really take a moment to acknowledge, to appreciate, to find a way to remember these things and look back on them when I needed them. So if you're someone that finds that you struggle with those similar things, maybe give it a go. I found it to be really useful. And it was just a really nice, quick, easy, inexpensive thing that I could do. I just kept it beside the Nespresso machine in our house. And so every morning I get up and I take my supplements and I put on a coffee. And while I was waiting for the coffee to brew, I would grab the journal and I would just either look around or I would be thinking about it when I woke up in the morning. What's something that I'm really grateful for right now that I can write into the journal? And so it would just start my day off in a really positive way. And more recently, I've been doing, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen me doing my daily dose of nature's beauty. I do it most days. Basically, when I'm out on one of my walks, I go on 2 walks a day with my dog, at least an hour's worth of walking, sometimes 3, somewhere between 1 and 3 hours, depending how relentless the puppy is being that day. And I just kind of put on my lens of looking for the beauty in nature as I'm walking. And I might not be walking on a trail in nature. I might be walking in suburbs or along the hydro lines or at a dog park or whatever it may be. But I'm always looking around. Are there any little wildflowers that I can see? Or is the light hitting the trees in a certain way? Or are some of the trees' leaves starting to change and fall? And just looking for those little beautiful parts of nature that exist all around us that are really easy to overlook. And I've been posting one a day for the most part on my Instagram stories just to share that with the world. And again, hopefully if it's something that is resonant to you, that you pick that up and implement it in your practice as well. So whatever it is that you need to do to get your mindset in order and have those really mindful practices that you do that just bring you back to your base zero or to a good place for you to either start your day on or just to kind of reground yourself. I know all of these kind of terms I'm using can be seen as a little woo-woo or like a little bit much for some people. On the whole, I'm not typically that type of person or very spiritual or anything like that, but I do think these are just proven factual things at this point. There's lots of scientific research that has gone into this stuff that proves that it works, and anecdotally, I have seen it work as well. Of course, I always have the tendency to go back into that negativity, or depending what my hormones are doing that day, or external factors that might be affecting my experience. You never know what you're going to get, but at least I have this toolkit of things that I can do that might help to rewire my brain in the right direction. And another area that I could find myself getting out of tune with or getting negative about was my products, my furniture refinishing that I did and that I do. Because, of course, we are our own worst critics and we can always find something negative or play that comparison game, which, say it with me, comparison is the thief of joy. We know that, right? As long as we know that and we remind ourselves of that when we start doing that comparison, it's okay. But if you don't know, now you know. Comparison is a thief of joy. So if we find ourselves in those really comparative moments, or we're scrolling on social media and we see somebody's piece, and instead of being inspired by that, being in awe of it, being excited for that person for trying out a new technique or surmounting a challenge, something that they were struggling with on this project and it turned out amazing, and instead we are comparing ourselves and our products and we're feeling lesser than, or feeling like we don't do as good of a job, then we need to really check our mindsets and have ways of reminding ourselves of where we came from, how far we have come, how much we have improved over time as we have learned, as we have practiced, as we have adapted our skills and our abilities and our style has changed. And these are just really important things to keep top of mind if you are doing furniture painting and refinishing on the regular. Like I said, especially so if you are on social media often and you are following people in these spaces, because there's a lot of amazing people out there doing really amazing work. And it's so easy to get in that negative mindset if you start comparing, but often it's comparing apples to oranges. They might have a different style than you. They may have different clients who are looking for something completely different. They may have paid so much more for that base piece that they got to refinish. You don't know the details, so comparing yourselves and your work to it is simply going to do nothing positive for you or your mind. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that I like to do and some of the things that I like to encourage others to do or remind others of that can help to just put your mindset back in check, or things that you can do to ground yourself and remind yourself just how far that you have come in this field and in this work and in this product that you're putting out. So here we go. The biggest thing that I like to do is looking back on my pieces, because when I look back on the piece that I first did in early March 2020 to the things that I'm putting out now in nearly October 2023, I can see just how far my techniques and my attention to detail and the products that I've used have evolved and changed and typically improved. Back then, I was focusing more on what products do I need to use, what are the steps that need to be done, how does this product compare to this product, and if I use it and then I use it with this product, like, is that going to look okay? What's going on? Like, where am I? What's happening? And it was just kind of like figuring out the bare bones basics and just trying to get the products onto the pieces. And that was the main focus, and that was the main focus because I was so new to this. But now, as I look at my pieces that are, being sold to people, they're not being kept in my own home. They have some expectation behind them because often they're for clients to go into their homes. They're coming to me because they have seen the work that I've done. They believe it to be to a certain level, and they obviously want that same quality and good finish that they have seen in my other work. So now I'm no longer focusing on just those products and what I should be using. I'm not often using new products, especially when they are on pieces that are going to be going in a client's home. I'm using my tried and true things that I've used over the years that I know hold up well, that I know work well together, that I know I can apply well. And instead, I'm more focused on executing the design or the vision that my client had, making sure that the finish is as flawless as it can be, that I am really thoroughly and properly prepping, that I am trying to avoid any hurdles that might come my way that I'm able to predict and try to avoid, like bleed through, for example. I'm much more aware of the things that could go wrong. I'm able to do repairs that I couldn't do then. All of these things that have changed over time and places that my focus now lies. In that moment when I'm starting to feel shitty about my work or myself or comparing myself to others, those aren't details that are coming to mind. I'm in my lizard brain and I'm just thinking those negative thoughts. I'm in a spiral, I'm in a loop of that, and I just need to pull myself out and take a step back and look at the big picture and be like, hey, look at what you used to be doing and look what you're doing now. You've actually come a really long way. You're always trying to do better and you're always trying to learn more. You're doing everything you can to get a good product, and if there's ever something that goes awry, you know that you'll do everything that you can to resolve that in a quick way for the client to make them happy, and you're just one human, so you're doing everything that you can. Reminding myself of those things and believing them and knowing them to be true is going to put me back into that positive mindset. I'm going to take a step back and go, oh yeah, I am doing the best I can, and I have come a really far way, and I still have room to grow, and that's fine because that's the case with everybody, right? Nobody's perfect. We're all human and we're always learning and things are always changing. So we can't possibly know everything there is to know out there or have dealt with every potential situation because the possibilities are endless. And as long as you are showing up consistently and doing everything that you can and always aiming to do better and to be better, then what more can you or anybody else ask for, right? That's my mentality, at least. Hopefully that resonates for you. Another thing I always like to encourage people to do, especially you lurkers out there who are maybe interested in doing your own furniture makeover, but you want to learn all the things and the tips and figure out all the products and, get all that knowledge before you jump into your first makeover so that you feel totally, completely ready. I am always telling people you're never going to feel totally ready. Like I said, I'm still learning, so don't wait to start practicing until you feel perfectly ready. Just jump in. And the first piece maybe isn't going to look the best, but you're going to figure out what needs to be changed. You're going to figure out where something went wrong or where you could get a better finish, or it's going to look great from the get-go and all of your time researching and teaching yourself will have gone to good use, which is even better. But ultimately, putting the hours in and getting that practice is what's going to get you to a place where you are putting out products that you're really proud of and that look like they are of professional quality. And the reality is watching another 10 tutorials online just isn't going to give you that impact in the same way as actually doing it and learning what works for you. Another thing that can come from that endless learning and trying to teach yourself and deep diving and watching tutorials and watching videos and asking questions and all of that researching, that can kind of lead to paralysis by overanalysis and not knowing where to start because, you deep dived and you tried to learn all of the little intricacies about every little thing and you are an expert on different top coats and the science behind the products and why they do what they do, and you know all the furniture brands, and you know how to put together furniture, so you know how to repair it and how to do anything that might be needed for a furniture makeover. But if you have just learned all of that and you have read about it and seen it with your own eyes, but you've never actually done it, you may not know where to start when you get that first dresser, that first nightstand, that first table in front of you, because you'll literally have so much knowledge of so many techniques and so many possibilities that you won't even know where to start, and you'll have that paralysis because you'll be overanalyzing everything. You'll be thinking about way too many things all at once, and that's why I think it's better to start early. Start before you know really all that you need to know. And then as you encounter these challenges or you start seeing things that are happening that you don't know how to tackle them, then Google it. Then go to YouTube and look for a video of someone teaching you how to do that repair or to tackle that bleed through. And that's the way that you're really going to learn, because you're going to associate that roadblock, that challenge that you encountered with that solution that you've seen, and it will cement it in your brain a little bit better than just having come across it in a video tutorial at one point in time. I know that I have taken in so much content over the years, and I might have some recollection of somebody that talked about or showed having a similar issue as I encounter in one of my flips. But the reality of me finding that again at the time that I need it, and it being the explanation that I needed and racked in my brain and I can access that when I need it, is kind of slim to none, honestly. My memory in my ripe old age of 30 years old is pretty shit, to be honest. So tackle the issue as you come across it. There's no harm in learning this stuff ahead of time, but don't allow that time that you're spending trying to learn and to figure this stuff out be stopping you from just putting pen to paper, putting paint to furniture, and just see where it takes you. Like I always say, it's not that deep. It's just furniture. You won't screw it up. If you don't like how it looks, you can always strip the paint back. You can resand it. There's so many options. If you want to start with something small so it's a little bit more manageable, go for it. But I truly think this is work that literally anybody would be able to do. It's not that complex. It's really not that difficult. It's just a set amount of steps that you repeat in different variations on different pieces of furniture. But again, over time, you're going to develop those skills. You're going to learn new techniques. You might eventually develop more of a personal style for yourself and what you like to do, what you like to put onto furniture, what you lean towards in terms of styles of pieces or styles of designs that you do. And I think it's really great to look back on where you've come and how far you've come. So make sure you're taking and retaining those before and after photos, those detail shots. I think it's good to keep it somewhere that you can go back and look on it, like in a camera roll or something. But if that's not the case, keep it on your Instagram. Don't ever go back and delete old posts. I always thought that was so, and continue to think it's so weird when people go back and they'll like delete old photos, that because they think people are going to scroll back so far in their profile. And I don't even understand it. Like, even if you do, you'll see the timestamp on it. You'll understand that that was at that person's point in their journey and they are now where those recent posts are. But like, that's good to be able to see that progress. It's good that you weren't as good back then and you're much better now. You're seeing how much you've learned and you've adapted over time. That's the ideal outcome. So go back and analyze those photos and remember how proud you were of those pieces at the time and how you surmounted those challenges and those barriers, and you thought that that was your best piece at the time. And then you can look back with a critical eye now and look a little bit closer and notice that texture that you didn't notice or that you overlooked at the time, or see how the design composition just looked a little bit off now when you look back with a more fine-tuned eye at the design. And all of these things that you're just developing over time. So go back and appreciate just how far you've come and see the difference, and that will really help to put you into that positive, self-affirming mindset that you kind of need in order to stay confident, in order to stay committed and motivated to doing this work. I think it's so important, and that's a way that I personally like to go about it when I'm feeling a little down in the dumps or need that motivation to try something new or to tackle a piece that I know is going to give me a little bit of annoyance along the way. You know, you always know when you're about to jump into a piece that's going to, well, you don't always know. Sometimes you know before you jump into a piece that it's going to be a huge headache. Sometimes it surprises you, and those are annoying, to say the least. But make it easy for you to be able to go back and check out those pieces and really pat yourself on the back for everything that you have done and everywhere that you have come. Another thing that I find often happens when I do that is I will look back at that era, at that point in time, and see the type of finish I was doing or just the product that I thought was the best that I could get at the time. And I will give myself a bombastic side eye and be like, okay, it was worse than I thought it was. And then what that will incite me to do is to go to the places in my home where I store the furniture that I have listed for sale and take a harder look at those pieces that I completed during that point in time that have been sitting and haven't sold. Because the chances are they're more than likely in that same category and they look similarly. So a lot of the times that will incite me to remove that listing from wherever I have it listed, and I will redo that piece because I know that I can get a much better finish now. I know that I have a better eye for design or whatever it may be, and I can put a better product out now, and I wouldn't want to sell a piece at this point in time that is refinished in the skills that I had 3 years ago just because it hasn't sold. If it hasn't sold, that might be an indicator of why, or maybe it was just a color or something that wasn't super trendy, but it might also be an indicator that it didn't look that great to possible buyers. So I'm going to refinish that piece. It's going to look a lot better. Like I said, you can always redo it. You can always strip that paint back. You can always resand. So that option is endlessly there. And I've done that a couple different times. And then that new piece that I've put out and listed has sold, within a couple days, a couple weeks, whatever it might be. So taking a look back and seeing how far you've come may also, if you want to think about it this way, result in more money in your pocket eventually, but just help to look at your work with a more critical eye, looking at it objectively rather than subjectively after you've been working on it for hours and hours and hours and you're finally like, I'm done, I'm listing it, you're feeling so good about it, and you might not be as objective in that moment about the quality of it, or like I say, your abilities may just improve over time and later on you might be able to do something a little bit better with that same piece. So if you're not somebody who is actively working on paying attention to and encouraging a positive mindset, whether it's in business, in your personal life, let this episode be the reminder for you. Because honestly, there's just so much negativity in the world and such a lack of confidence just overall in people, in the world, that whatever you can do to preserve your own peace, I think is so important. And if you are somebody who is in business for yourself, you're spending the day by yourself, so you need to be responsible for that positivity, for that bright light, for that motivation and that inspiration that you are actively putting upon yourself, that you're bringing to yourself. Because nobody else is going to come and throw it at you and force it on you, unfortunately. That would be so useful and helpful, but it doesn't happen from my experience. So you got to find ways to figure it out yourself. And something you may not know about me, I love little motivational messages. They always get me fired up, and I keep a running list of ones that are especially catchy or speak to me in the notes app on my phone. So I end every podcast episode with one that I've noted down over the years in hopes that you leave our time here each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to take on whatever comes your way this week. So this week's Mel's motivational message is, the bad news is time flies. The good news is, you're the pilot. And I wanted to use this quote today to remind you that you are that pilot in your own journey, in your own story. And although time is going to fly by, I know I mean, scientifically, time moves faster as you get older. You're doing less new things in your days, you're experiencing less new things, and that makes time go by faster. Fun fact. And so, inevitably, this is going to happen more and more as life goes on. But you are the one in charge of those experiences, of however you choose to spend your time. So make it count and make it worthwhile and make it something that you can look back and really see that progress, whether it's in your furniture refinishing or in your life in general. You don't want to look back 1, 3, 5, 10 years in the rearview mirror and find that you are the same person you were back then, that you were doing the same thing back then that you're doing now. You were doing it at the same capacity and with the same abilities, that you're struggling with the same things you were back then. Because ultimately, it's my belief that you want to be growing and evolving over time. You probably, hopefully, want to be improving yourself and your craft and the work you're doing and the outputs you have. And if there's things that you're struggling with, I would assume you don't want to be struggling with those same things in 10 years' time. So do what you can with the time that you have now, that you are in charge of, that you are responsible for, to find ways to look into those things, to learn more, to be able to evolve, to try out different strategies for changing your mindset, for motivating yourself, for tackling those issues or those challenges you may be having. There's so much that we have the ability to do. Again, the entire World Wide Web is at our fingertips, people. You can learn anything, you can achieve anything if you put your mind to it, if you are committed to that thing, and you have a solid plan in place. I don't see what's stopping you other than you. All right, that's it for now. I appreciate your time, and I will see you guys next week.